In today's lesson, we're going to learn about the best way to organize introductions and conclusions for argumentative papers. Make sure that you take notes as we go through this video so that you can understand the three parts of introductions and the three parts of conclusions. Let's start with introductions. An introduction for an argumentative paper has three basic parts. So we start off with the hook or the lead, and the purpose of this is to really catch your reader's attention. Then we're going to fill in with some background information. We're not going to give all of the details, but we're going to give a little bit more information about the topic so that your reader has a little bit more general understanding of what it is that you'll be discussing or trying to convince them of in your argumentative paper. And then we're going to finish up with our thesis. This is one sentence that gets across your most important idea. So let's look at a sample introduction. So here's a sample hook. On March 11, 2010, a high school pitcher in California was facing a player using a metal bat when he was hit in the temple by a line drive traveling 100 miles per hour. His skull was crushed and he spent weeks in a coma. Fortunately, after surgery and months of rehabilitation, he survived. So you can see that's really only 3 sentences, but it really caught your reader's attention. So that's what we call our hook or our lead. Then we have our background information. The accident brought to the forefront an issue that has been a safety concern ever since the 1970s when metal bats began being used instead of wooden bats. So we didn't give the entire history of baseball or metal bats, but we give a little bit of background information to let our reader know, if they're not well versed in this area, oh, this has actually been an issue that's been going on for a while because of the difference between metal bats and wooden bats. And then we finish with our thesis. This is what you're trying to convince your reader of. So in an argumentative paper, this is your argument. Metal bats are dangerous and should be banned by youth sports leagues for several reasons. So your thesis in an argumentative paper is the point that you're trying to get your reader to agree with. So now let's look at conclusions. If you think back to our informative paper from last semester, you kind of remember that our introduction was an inverted pyramid and our conclusion was a pyramid. So it's the same thing here. It's kind of a mirror image of our introduction. So after the whole body of your paper, to start off your conclusion, you will have 3 basic parts again. You'll start off by restating your thesis statement or your claim, your idea that you were trying to convince the reader of. Then you will briefly, very, very briefly, kind of summarize your main reasons or evidence that you gave in the body of your paper. And then you'll finish with basically the biggest reason or the biggest benefit or action that you want your reader to come away with. So sometimes that's called a call to action of something that your reader should do, or the biggest way that it is going to benefit your reader if they agree with you. So this is your last chance to really kind of get them on your side. So let's look at a sample. So this is our restating of our theme, our thesis statement. Metal bats endanger the lives of young baseball players. So remember, your entire paper was about how metal bats are dangerous for young baseball players, and so therefore they shouldn't be using them. Then we're going to briefly re-summarize our points. So first, they make the baseball travel at a high rate of speed, making it difficult to catch. Secondly, they have resulted in many injuries. So these were the ideas that you talked about within the body of your paper. You kind of briefly summarized your evidence. And then you finished with your call to action, what you want your reader to do now that they hopefully agree with you. Banning metal bats is necessary in order to save the lives of young players, and everyone concerned should contact their local lawmakers. So that's the call to action. That's the thing that you want to do now that you have convinced your reader of your argument. So now you're going to test your understanding of the organization of introductions and conclusions. You'll start the questions in this lesson and you'll match up the different aspects of an introduction, the hook, the background information, and the thesis so that you can order an introduction paragraph. And then you'll also look at a conclusion, the restating of the thesis, summarizing the reasons or evidence, and then the call to action or the benefit to the reader as you end your conclusion.